This Talk Business Arkansas Daily Report is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to this edition of Talk Business Arkansas. We're glad to have you with us. Our big story today, it's actually from the national stage. President Obama earlier today unveiled a new gun control legislative package and a series of executive orders. Here's what's in it. Obama's proposal includes a ban on assault weapons, limits on high-capacity magazines, expanded background checks for gun purchases, and new gun trafficking laws. He also promised to act without congressional approval to increase the enforcement of existing gun laws and improve the flow of information among federal agencies. Obama also planned a national dialogue on mental health to be led by the Secretaries of Education and Health and Human Services. This is our first task as a society, he said, keeping our children safe. This is how we will be judged, and their voices should compel us to change. Of course, Arkansas has some high profile in this national debate. Former Congressman and 2014 gubernatorial potential candidate for the Republicans, Asa Hutchinson, is leading a National Rifle Association initiative to study putting armed guards in schools. Now, Senator John Boozman was the first one to react to President Obama's initiative. Senator Boozman said ultimately his plans rely too strongly on the failed gun control ideas of the past. While he's likely to find a broad base of support for some in his mental health directives and for providing incentives to hire school resource officers, his push for Congress to bring back the assault weapons ban and to limit ammunition is misguided. New laws are not the answer. Stricter enforcement of the laws on the books is where we need to start. Congressman Tim Griffin added, while some of President Obama's proposals address these issues, his focus on restricting the rights of law-abiding citizens with tried and failed anti-Second Amendment policies is poll-tested but counterproductive. I am the father of 2 young children, and I'm interested in solutions to curb the violence that plagues America. But I'm not interested in feel-good legislation that leaves our children no safer and Americans less free. Of course, we'll be watching developments on this front. Now, it was a busy day on the business agenda in Arkansas. We'll come back with some business headlines right after this message from our sponsors. And later in the program, Representative Bruce Westerman, the House Majority Leader, sits down for a conversation of what's on his agenda. I'm Roby Brock. This is Talk Business.
I don't think it's going to be an easy conversation because they are very strong-willed. I think it's going to be important to us that we know that you're somewhere in a facility that looks after you, has compassion, has care, and you respect it. I mean, I'd love to look after them, I'd love to be able to take care of them, but I don't think I could. That'd be a wrong choice on my part.
Arkansas's skilled nursing and assisted living centers provide quality care for our seniors.
Farm Bureau helps protect its members in more ways than you might think. They've always been the voice of agriculture in Arkansas, working on behalf of folks like me when nobody else would. And Farm Bureau stands for the values that Arkansas families care about. They've protected my right to farm and make a living, which helps everybody who likes food on the table. You know what they say, Arkansas counts on agriculture, and agriculture counts on Farm Bureau.
The Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. The State Chamber AIA is the leading voice for business at the state capitol and serves as the primary business advocate on all issues affecting Arkansas employers. Our mission is to promote a pro-business, free enterprise agenda and prevent anti-business legislation, regulations, and rules. Now more than ever, business matters. Learn more at arkansasstatechamber.com.
In today's business news, we look at everything from filling up your car for $1 a gallon to a $1 billion super project. Tax law changes resulting from federal legislation avoiding the fiscal cliff could significantly improve the cost savings of using alternative fuels in vehicles, particularly compressed natural gas. The tax law change lowered by 50 cents the gasoline gallon equivalent for CNG, and that could have you and some of those big rigs on the highways paying up to $2 a gallon less. We've got the full story on our website at talkbusinessarkansas.com. Bank of the Ozarks is set to release its fourth quarter and full year earnings later this afternoon. We'll have that story on our website too. The Little Rock-based bank saw a small increase in its third quarter earnings last quarter. Bank of the Ozarks has been on an acquisition spree in recent years. Its latest purchase in Alabama last October. Yesterday on Talk Business Arkansas, we interviewed AEDC Director Grant Tennille, who said the state is in the running for an advanced manufacturing project north of $1 billion. We are increasingly confident that we'll be back to the legislature very quickly, very likely to trigger Amendment 82, Tennille said. Amendment 82 is the state's super project amendment, which allows general obligation bonds to be issued to finance infrastructure for large-scale industrial projects that meet certain spending and employment thresholds. And if it's a big project, it must mean big jobs. After this break, I'll sit down with House Majority Leader Representative Bruce Westerman to find out if he thinks there's much of an appetite for super project bond funding in this year's legislature. I'm Roby Brock. We're back after the break.
Noble Strategies is a bipartisan state and federal government affairs firm with a successful track record of providing effective advocacy for business, government, and nonprofit entities. Noble Strategies provides service in areas such as lobbying, public affairs, trade association management, and marketing campaigns. Learn more at noblestrat.com.
I was looking for a bank that could best protect my finances.
This shared my passion for my business's potential.
A bank that offered investment expertise,
lending support, insurance guidance.
A bank that delivered full financial support.
That's how I found True Balance.
True Balance.
From my bank.
From my bank.
Delta Trust and Bank, the expertise to meet all your financial needs.
One of the real advantages of electric cooperatives membership is having a voice in our state's energy future.
Not a week goes by without important energy issues making headlines. These are issues that need to be discussed. And you should know that as policies are being developed, the cooperatives are looking out for our members, advocating what's best for you.
We are your friends and neighbors.
We are your local electric company.
The electric cooperatives.
We are Arkansas.
We're with Representative Bruce Westerman. He's the House Majority Leader. We get to say that for the first time on camera in 2013. Republican from Hot Springs. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Roby.
Let's talk first about some news that the governor made today. He actually said at a political animals club meeting this morning, or at midday, that if the legislature sent him a bill to repeal the death penalty, he would sign it. Is there any movement afoot to do that?
Not that I've heard of. It's actually the first I've heard of that. I wasn't at the political animals event, but that's interesting.
Yeah. So you've not had any conversations with anyone. What do you think is going to happen on the death penalty in this legislative session? It has been a topic of concern because of a Supreme Court ruling last year. Do you think that there'll just be a simple correction and some language on that?
That's what I've heard talked about, is just a simple correction and trying to meet the stipulations that the Supreme Court put out.
Yesterday, the governor dropped a hint in his State of the State address talking about the fact that there would be a big economic development announcement. I know that there's some hush-hush on some of that, but some of the details have leaked out. We know that it's a economic development project north of $1 billion, which would make it a super project in terms of investment with jobs and infrastructure. That's going to require the enactment of Amendment 82 and general obligation bonds by the state of Arkansas to help finance some of the incentives. What are you hearing from legislators right now about the appetite for issuing those bonds?
Again, I haven't heard a lot about that either, I think mainly because there hasn't been an official announcement yet. So I think when more details of the project come out and we know, where the project's going to be, what it's actually going to do, how much the bonds are, then we can start talking about how people feel about that.
Do you think that there would be some legislators, though, who would have some concerns that it may be given away too much?
Again, it depends on how much the bonds are. Some people are of the view that the government shouldn't be in the business of supporting businesses and providing incentives that maybe even create some unfair competition for businesses. But we just don't know the details of it yet.
Let's talk about Medicaid. Obviously, this is going to be the Medicaid session, some will say. We've got a bunch of different moving parts on this. You've got the governor saying that the funding gap is probably a lot smaller than previously projected. We don't have a firm number yet. You may have a firm number. I don't have a firm number, but
the number seems to be a moving target. It amazes me how in 1 month it went from 138 million to 21 million is the number I've heard tossed around. So who knows what it'll be next month? Maybe we're going the right direction.
You don't see any problems though with the actual funding gap. It's going to get addressed in this session, whether it's through using surplus money and growth revenue or from some other means.
I think when you look at programs like Level 3 nursing care, that everything's on the table when it comes to funding that. I mean, that's a need for the elderly people in nursing homes, and we have to fund that. That's a high priority.
I've talked to a couple of Republican and Democratic legislators today about the potential for the health insurance exchanges, another contentious subject in the healthcare debate up here. I seem to sense some consensus that there may be a full-blown punt to the federal government and let them do what they're planning on doing and not do any kind of hybrid with the state.
Yeah, and again, even going back to the 2011 session, the bill that was presented for the enabling legislation for a state-run exchange, I would almost call that a state-run exchange in name only, because it was everything ceding back to the federal government or the Health and Human Services Director. So I've seen the benefits of possibly just letting the federal government run the exchange. It may possibly even create more competition than we would have with a partnership exchange or a state-run exchange.
You're the majority leader in the Arkansas House. What do you think the majority is going to do on Medicaid expansion?
I think that's still unknown right now. With the data and the information that we have right now, I can't see that we could get 76 votes in the House to pass it, and I've not seen anything put out that makes me think that that's going to change a lot of people's minds. But we're trying to be open and listen to what's being discussed and let people make their case, just like we want to have a chance to make our case.
So what do you think a solution does ultimately look like?
I think it involves some reforms to the existing system to make sure that what we've got now is sustainable and that we don't expand an unsustainable system, and that we continue to meet the needs of those Arkansans who are most vulnerable, who rely on those services. So that's kind of the objective of the reforms that we're looking at.
Could you see the possibility where, even though the federal government has said it's an all or nothing approach, did you guys pass something that's somewhere in between all or nothing and say, we'll take our chances, we'll let the governor go try to sell this thing upstream and we'll see what happens?
I think it's too important of an issue and there's too much at stake to be taking chances. I think we have to be well informed. We have to know what we're getting. We can't have a pig in a poke and just say we'll pass it and see what we get later. I think we're going to have to understand it. We're not under a time crunch. We can expand at any time if that is a solution down the road. So first and foremost, we have to reform what we've got. We have to make it efficient and effective and sustainable for the long run.
Is the real holdup that a lot of people campaign against it? They just don't believe in it, they don't support the concept?
Well, obviously if they campaigned against it, there was a reason behind that. And philosophically, you got to ask yourself, do you want a third of your population on Medicaid? Is that where we want our state to be? Is that something that we can be proud of, that we would have a third of our citizens on government health care?
Last question for you. Guys have put together a package before the session called the Simple Plan. It involves some tax reform, legal and regulatory reform, education reform, and quite a bit of stuff. Where do you stand with that package? Is it going to come piecemeal? Is it going to come maybe all in one fell swoop?
It'll be piecemeal, and I think you will see that the legislation that has a broad support from the House caucus and also from the Senate caucus will fit in the frameworks of that Simple Plan.
Give me a sneak preview. Give me an example of something that we might see that offers a little bit more specifics than just the bare bones of the name of the package.
I've got a bill that one that I had drafted. It's putting a cap on spending. It says that the state budget can't grow more than the state economy is basically what it's saying. It will contain the growth of state government. And had we put this into place 10 years ago, we would have averaged about $250 to $300 million per year surplus each year and still been able to grow state government at a modest rate.
All right, he's Representative Bruce Westerman. He is the House Majority Leader. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate you.
Anytime.
All right. That's all for this edition of Talk Business Arkansas. You can catch more business and political headlines at talkbusinessarkansas.com. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.
This Talk Business Arkansas Daily Report is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.